Now it's time for Glow with Marquette Shepherd, a show where talk enlightens and inspires you to glow through life instead of going through the life just to get by. Hosted by Emmy award-winning TV host and best-selling author Marquette Shepherd. Listen now for insightful conversations featuring celebrities and thought leaders. Call in to share your story live on air. Are you ready for a glow up? Your journey towards enlightenment starts right now.
Welcome to the debut episode of Glow with Marquette Shepherd. I'm Marquette Shepherd, and this is the podcast companion to Glow Stream TV. Now, if you are looking to not just go through life, but to glow through life, then you found the right place. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe because this podcast right here is hot. My first guest is so inspirational. She is New York Times best-selling author Denene Millner, and you may have heard of one of her books. She has 34, by the way, but one of her more famous ones is Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man. It was turned into a movie, and she co-wrote it with Steve Harvey. She also co-wrote Around the Way Girl, the memoir of actress Taraji P. Henson. And you know, when Cookie Johnson was looking for somebody to help her write her book, she turned to Denene Millner. And one of the cutest books that she's written ever, that was with Will Smith. Yes, the action hero. Yes, the Fresh Prince. He went to Denene Millner to write his latest children's book, The Fresh Princess. And I also am a huge fan. And I sat down with Denene because while she is flying high now, things didn't start out this way when she was a young news reporter. She overcame immense odds, including the devaluation of her work and unethical treatment by horrible bosses as a young writer. And she talks to me in this podcast about how she overcame, as Oprah said, how we overcome. Denene overcame these horrible bosses who really did things to kind of throw rocks in her path, only to rise to become one of the most celebrated celebrity memoir writers of modern times. Now, she is also publisher of Denene Millner Books at Simon & Schuster, one of the biggest publishers in the world. And full disclosure, she's also my publisher of 3 of my books. And so I am so happy and proud to say she's joining me on this podcast, not only as one of my favorite bosses in the world, she's actually an amazing person to work with, but also as an inspiration. So if you are working through something right now in your life, listen to this story. She will uplift and inspire you. Take a listen. Denene, welcome to the Glow Show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. You know, I'm one of your biggest fans. You know that, right?
No, I'm one of your biggest fans. You cannot say that. Listen, folks, for everyone listening or watching, because we are also on Facebook, if you want to see what we look like, or if you're listening on iTunes or from your car, or wherever you're getting the Glow Show, Denene Millner has written more than 30 books. But Denene, I'm so impressed with you because you've reached such levels of success in your writing career that you've decided to give back as a publisher. And one of the most frequent questions I get is, how do I get my book published? And so listen up, people, because we have the plug to the publishing world in here, Denene. But I want to start, before we get to that question, let's start with your origin story. Everyone starts out somewhere. When did you have the idea that I want to become a writer, and not only just write, but write books and memoirs and team up with people the likes of Steve Harvey and Will Smith and household names around the world?
Oh, well, let me tell you, that was when I was age 14. Like, if we're going to go way back, it was when I was 14 years old. I was in the 9th grade. I had gotten another C on a physics test, and my dreams of being an architect were fast fading. And my dad was like, hey, I don't think this architecture thing is going to work out for you. I really do believe you need to find something else you want to do with the rest of your life. So what do you want to do with the rest of your life? And at the time, we had a TV on the kitchen table where he asked me this question. And at the time, there was a legendary newscaster, Sue Simmons, who had a show called Live at 5. And at that moment, she was interviewing New Edition. And anybody who knows me knows that I wanted to marry Ralph Tresvant. So I was like, I want to do what she does so that I could, meet Ralph Tresvant. And he said, okay, so tomorrow I want you to go back to school and figure out what you have to do to become Sue Simmons. And I literally went back to school the next day and found out that we had a media, like a television show that you could be a part of if you agreed to stay an extra period after class, after school. We had our own radio station where you could DJ if you had your own records. And I did both of those things. And then I joined the school, what do you call that? The yearbook staff. And from there, everything that I did was built toward becoming Sue Simmons so I could interview celebrities. But I got a full tuition scholarship from Hofstra University. I got it actually from Newsday, which was our local newspaper, to go to Hofstra University. And Newsday agreed to give me an internship during the summers. And it was during those internships that I learned how to write and fell in love with writing and being a journalist. And so my background is as a journalist. I worked as a news reporter, a news editor for the Associated Press, and then a political reporter for the Associated Press, and then the New York Daily News, and then switched over to do magazine work. And that whole time I was doing either politics or entertainment, which in some cases is very much the same thing. And then, somewhere along the line, got offered a book deal based off of a story on that I wrote for the Daily News. And that's how my book career started. But I didn't have any intention of writing books. It wasn't on my radar to do that. I wanted to marry Ralph Tresvant and be Sue Simmons.
But after so many different successes that the universe or God has shown you first, how do you embrace going on a different journey than what your laser vision get to Ralph Tresvant by being on camera? How do you embrace the journey? Because a lot of people won't embrace change.
Right. Well, for me, I've never been one to sit in anybody's box, right? Because in order to succeed in one specific thing, you have to be laser focused, sure, but you also need to understand that people will paint you into a box and tell you that you can't do anything else. So when I worked at the Associated Press, which is at the time, and probably still is, I'm not sure, but I'm sure it is a news aggregator. They told me that I would never be a solid journalist. When I became a journalist, a political journalist for the Associated Press, and then later for the Daily News, it was, well, I know that you're interested in writing entertainment, but, you write politics. And I just decided I would do entertainment writing on the side. And so while I was covering Cuomo, and the daddy, Mario Cuomo, and then George Pataki.
Oh, okay. I was going to say Cuomo. Woo! I know you got some stories there.
The daddy, right? I was covering the daddy. I'm taking you way back. And Pataki, Dinkins in New York, and Giuliani when he was the mayor. I was told that I couldn't write stories about Brandy and Jay-Z and D'Angelo and Erykah Badu and Jill Scott, and I just didn't see what the difference was between the two. So long as I knew how to put a story together and could string words in a sentence, I was doing my job. And so, I never took, you can't do that as an answer. As a matter of fact, I never asked permission. I just apologized if somebody said I was wrong. And then I would just keep going and doing whatever I wanted to. And so, if you write for newspapers, you can't write magazine stories. Lies. I could write long length, stories for Vibe and The Source and XXL just as easily as I could a 400-word story for the Daily News when I wanted to be an editor because I got tired of writing. Well, you're a writer. You can never be an editor. What are you talking about? Of course I can. Well, if you write for a newspaper or a magazine, you can't write books. Of course I can. And so I did radio, I did television, all of that stuff to me is super interesting and all very much a part of media and my ability to take ideas and funnel them through the different medium doesn't change the fact that I'm good at what I do regardless, because I know how to communicate a story.
I love it. And I was snapping my fingers for people listening if you heard that, because in praise. And let's pause there and let people know this one thing, because I've been told after winning local and national awards by News Manager, you're not good enough. Like, how do you sit somebody in an office and say that to them?
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so I think as women and women of color in particular, we need to talk about the big lie as you pursue your dream. And the big lie is the person who's seeing you do your thing, seeing you be great, and they're not happy within themselves for some reason. Absolutely. And they're saying, oh, you can't do that. And Absolutely. What you're saying, Denene, is, oh, yes, you can.
Absolutely. And I snap my fingers back at you, because you know, as a newswoman, just as well as I do, that Black women in these spaces catch hell. We really do. I have horror stories about white male managers pulling me into rooms and telling me, when nobody else could hear, how terrible I was, how bad a writer I was, how I'm just about to get fired if I don't do this, that, or the other. I had people, tearing my stories apart and literally taking investigative stories that I did and giving them to the people that I was investigating to show them what I was working on, to just tear
unethical, by the way, completely unethical.
Completely. Right. And we walk into these spaces, wanting to be journalists, wanting to do our jobs and wanting to do them well, and to have people use our gender or our race to tear down our work, not only tears down our work, but seeks to tear us down. And you really have to have thick skin and be able to go home and block out that noise that tells you you're not capable. Because had I listened to the person who told me that I couldn't write, had I accepted that someone took my story and gave it to the person that I was investigating so that it could be literally reported on by somebody else to, block my efforts. My own, bosses did that. If I listened to people tell me that I couldn't write for a magazine or write books, or I would get in trouble for MSNBC would call me because they would see my stories in the newspaper and then say, can you come in tomorrow and talk about it? And rather than ask, because I always knew that the answer would be no, I would just go, because they didn't support me being the one. They would go and cherry pick who they wanted to talk about my stories and have them talk about it. So instead of ask permission, I would just go. They would be sitting in the 11 o'clock news meeting, girl, and the TV would be on, and I would be like running my mouth on MSNBC, and I would get yelled at when I came back in. But I was like, okay. But the whole time that I was there, I was shouting you out. I am your employee. I am your reporter. We are talking about the stories that I wrote in your newspaper. I don't understand why this is a problem. I got in trouble for writing books while I was, a reporter at the Daily News. I got in trouble for that.
Same.
I don't go out and say, Daily News reporter, here is the book that I wrote. So after a while, I just, it took a lot for me, a lot of counseling from fellow Black journalists, to just sort of pull me aside and say, keep doing what you're doing. Because if I listened to them, I wouldn't have 34 books in print. I wouldn't have my own publishing company. I would not have been on television. I would not have had my own podcast. I would not have been on radio. All of the things that I was able to do, had I listened to those people tear me down and tell me that I wasn't worthy of anything that I was doing and that what I was doing was worthless to them, I wouldn't have done all the things that I did.
Your story mirrors my story. And I was literally told, you're not good enough. And we're not happy about this book. The book you so graciously published for me. And I said, it's a book that inspires babies.
Baby, how is this
How
a
can
problem?
anyone be against this?
Right. How can you be against a book that's written for babies about babies?
That tells babies to love themselves.
Right. Make it make sense.
So you have a bright light within you, and you know it. Your situation is that, like most women of color in TV, nobody else knows it. When do you make the decision, I'm going to go from employee to employer? I'm going to go from trying to get these people to lift me up to lifting up the voices of not only the unknown authors like me, when I came to you without a publishing credit, but collaborating with the likes of Cookie Johnson, Taraji P. Henson, who you helped. Where do you find that strength, courage, confidence?
Well, a big part of it was fun. It was just fun to take what I thought was just sort of a longer version of what I was already doing for newspapers and magazines, which was doing, long length interviews and stories on celebrities. And so my very first celebrity book was basically it was based off of a story that I wrote for Essence magazine. I did a story on Nene Leakes and another woman who had been on the first season of The Real Housewives of Atlanta. And someone saw that story, an editor saw that story and was like, hey, I think Nene is, really magnetic. And, her story that I read in Essence was, something else. Do you think that you would be willing to write a long length book? They actually called Nene, and Nene called me and said, is this legit? Who is this person that's reaching out to me? And should I, entertain her phone call? And I was like, girl, that's Dawn Davis. She is one of the top editors in the publishing business, and definitely one of the top Black publishing editors in the book business. Absolutely, you call her back. And if you need an agent, here's a number for an agent. If you don't like her, she can introduce you to 20 others. And if you need someone to write your book, I'm here. I'm not saying I should be the one to do it. I'm just letting you know that if you need to build a package, you can build it with me. And that's what happened. And
so you seized the moment too. Absolutely. I'm like, okay, check.
Absolutely. Why not? I knew that I could handle the work. I had already, I'd written a couple of children's books. I had already written adult books for myself. And I'm I'm a journalist by trade. I know how to ask a question. I know how to do interviews. I know how to dig for information and then turn that into a story. It was just a matter of turning it into a book length story instead of a story for a magazine or a newspaper. And so, and Dawn, I had worked with her on a couple of other books, adult books that I'd written with a couple of my friends. And so she knew my reputation as a writer. She knew my reputation as somebody who turns her work in on time. It's, well written, well researched. And so she was like, of course, this makes sense. We ultimately ended up taking Nene's book to a different publisher, but Dawn funneled more work to me. It was because of Dawn that I got the Steve Harvey books. It was because of Dawn that I did Charlie Wilson and Cookie Johnson, a couple of my novelizations.
Charlie, by the
way. Oh, he's so amazing. When he sang Outstanding to me.
As he sings.
I wanted to do this thing. One of my obsessions is understanding the beauty of music and what emotions and what goes into those songs that become iconic. And Outstanding to me is one of the most iconic songs that, like that when you put it on at a barbecue, a Black barbecue or a family reunion, everybody stops what they're doing and they two-step. Outstanding. Girl, you knocked me out. Right. And so I wanted to know how they built that song. How did you build that song? Where did the emotion come from? What was it like to record it? And he ran me through it and then sang it to me. And when I tell you I fanned out, I very rarely fan out, but I was like, I just need a moment to be a fan. Oh my goodness, this is my favorite song ever. And Charlie Wilson is singing it to me. So it was amazing. But yeah, so that's pretty much how I got on that journey. And then with publishing very quickly, I always wanted to write children's books because I have babies that I felt deserved to um, have stories read to them that spoke to the everyday beauty and humanity of Black children. And I felt at the time that a lot of the Black books that were on the market were about very specific subject matter, slavery, civil rights movement, or Black firsts. And I wanted to have books that speak to exactly what you write in your beautiful books. What is Light is about, the light that is in children. My Rainy Day Rocket Ship is about a little boy who is bored and uses everyday household goods to build his own rocket ship, and and he has his parents to support him in that. Those are everyday stories that I feel deserve to be on the market. They deserve to be read by caregivers who care about their children, and they deserve to be read and enjoyed by Black children as well as all other children. And so when I was writing those books, the industry wasn't trying to hear it. So I was like, all right, if you don't want to do it, I'll do it myself.
I love it. That mentality of, I'm going to take ownership of my idea. I don't need permission. That's what you said. And that's why you are who you are.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take notes, glow getters. You do not need permission.
You absolutely do not. You can get it done.
We have some listeners from the Glowstream TV fam. And if you are a listener and you haven't been, visit glowstreamtv.com, subscribe, hit the like button on Instagram at GlowstreamTV, follow our journeys. I want to bring in Mr. Be Rich Beauty. He's been listening to our conversation. And I just want to ask Mr. Be Rich Beauty, if you have any questions listening to Denene. You're in a completely different industry, in the beauty industry, but do you have any similarities that resonate with you? You have Denene Millner Books, publisher, in the house to ask.
Listening to the story, I always got questions and I always have a comment, Marquette. But one thing that you said that resonated is that you have 34 books in print, right? And I always think about, like, oftentimes on Sundays, we're like self-care Sunday, and I'm a huge advocate for self-care. But self-care should not just be on Sunday, it should be every day.
That's right.
How do you find your work-life self-care balance as accomplished as you are?
I will tell you that I have to force myself. I'm in the middle of finishing up a novel now called The Beautiful Blood, and it's about motherhood, adoption, race, feminism, and sort of the intersection of all of that for Black women, told from like the 1940s through like the early 1990s. And and when I write books, like, everybody in the house knows that when I'm on deadline, that my whole body can seize on me. And I'm not the most pleasant person. I'm not evil, but like, if I am zoned in, I need you to recognize I'm zoned in. And my kids, like, I was, I had babies in my belly both times when I was writing books. So they know what it's like for their mom to be a writer. By the time I finish writing books, I have to get my glasses, updated, my prescription. My eyes are usually worse. My wrists are usually worse. My back is usually worse. And I tend to, push through writing books in addition to doing a billion other things at the same time. And I'm learning now, I'll be 54 next in October.
Wow, congratulations, you look great.
And I'm learning now that I can't push myself at that pace anymore, right? Like, that was all right when I was in my 20s, and I could pull it off in my 30s when I had babies. In my 40s, I started like, whew, this is a lot. Now I'm like, I can't keep up that pace anymore. And so I literally have to stop myself. A big part of self-care for me is not working. And so it's like, all right, at 8:00, all the computer needs to be shut down, and you can have a glass of wine, full stop. It has to stop.
So,
Because if I try to work through till 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm not being productive, and I'm literally physically hurting myself. And
so it's about setting boundaries
yeah, absolutely. And so
for
it's
yourself.
8 o'clock, shut it down. I'll have a glass of wine, or I'll take a hot bath, or I will sit and watch a show, or I'll read, or I'll journal, I'll light candles. It is literally like creating a space where I can like come down off of the absolute high and energy of being completely locked into using my mind in a way. And I know that people think, like, what is she talking about? She's a writer. Like, how dangerous and
Right.
physical
Writers
is
get it,
that?
Denene. When you put your whole self into something, time
Absolutely.
is suspended. I can
Absolutely.
relate to that. When you find
Absolutely.
your passion, listeners, that's what it feels like. What
Absolutely.
Denene is saying is whatever your passion is, maybe you paint or you bake cakes or you write like us or you do beauty. That's what it feels like when you found your calling.
Right, absolutely. And it can take its physical toll, like be clear. Like I said, like I'll have RSI from and back issues from bending over, and eye issues from staring at the screen or staring at a phone.
Oh,
And
we
it
need to
just
send Denene some bath bombs, Brandon. We're going to collaborate on this, okay?
Right. We got to make you have a self-care moment. Absolutely.
We're going to get you on the bath bomb list, okay?
exactly.
But
So
to your point, Denene, I
yeah,
think that's so true. It's about setting, like I said, setting the boundaries, respecting the boundaries, and not allowing yourself to just do a big drop from when you turn off the computer to then going to bed or eating dinner, but giving
right.
yourself a moment to rest, come down, and to be able to relax. So I think that's a
Absolutely.
really great
Absolutely.
suggestion. Thank you for sharing
Absolutely.
that.
My pleasure.
Another thing I took from what you just said is that in order to be successful, you do have to be committed and interested. A lot of people try a lot of different things because they want to make money, or, of course, rightfully so, you need to support yourself and your family. But when you find that thing that you're really good at, it also takes that level of focus and commitment, like you said, where you're reading and you're writing and you're so focused that it's resonating through your body.
Absolutely. And I get asked a lot, I want to write books, what should I do? Or I want to be published, what should I do? And it's really a matter of being committed to it. It's a matter of taking a moment out of every day to exercise that commitment, right? Whether if you want to be a writer, it is reading other people's work, because game recognizes game, right? So, like, what are the top books that are out, and what is it that is being said in these books, and how is it being conveyed? Who are the illustrators that you would like to work with? Do you know who the illustrators are? Do you have an aesthetic that it is that you would like for your children's book? Is there is there a void where you're interested, and how do you fill that? It's reading, it's doing your research, it's reading every day. Read, write every day, every day. Get tuned into who the publishers are and the kinds of work that they publish. Get tuned into the agents and the kinds of authors they represent. It is doing your research just the way that you would do. Anybody these days, because of social media, feels like they can call themselves a journalist or a writer. Writing 140 characters and running your mouth on Twitter is not being a writer. And showing up somewhere and pointing your iPhone at some action happening is not being a journalist. It is dedicating yourself to the craft and understanding the nuances of what a real news story is. That's why we have so many fools running around here, looking at YouTube journalism or YouTube, commentary as science and fact, when it is not, because we are not respecting the work that true journalists do. We are not respecting the work that true writers do. And I feel like, because I am in this industry and I take it seriously, I have been writing and collecting checks for my writing since I was 17 years old. Again,
Okay now.
Okay. I know what I'm doing. I'm very good at it. And And a lot of that has to do with my taking this work seriously. So there's not a day that goes by that I'm not reading somebody else's work. There's not a day that goes by that I'm not writing, whether it's on my computer or in my journal. There's not a day that goes by that I'm not studying the industry, reading Publishers Weekly, looking at the school library journal or Kirkus reviews, and seeing what's coming, what's past, and what's coming in the future. And so if this is what you want to do, if you are serious about being a writer, be serious about it.
On that note, let's drop the mic. Denene Millner has spoken. Thank you so much, Denene, for not only stepping into my life and agreeing to publish me so many years ago as a journalist, but an unpublished author, but for speaking into the hearts and minds of all women out there, women of color, men, people in general who need to be lifted up. Because like you said, those stories, those sad stories, they have been told. Now let's tell the story of healing and glowing up in our life. And I thank you for being a bright light in this universe.
I thank you for trusting me with your work, trusting me with the beauty of your books. I'm so excited for your career all across with Glow, with your book writing, with your podcast, everything. And I'm grateful to be a part of that experience. So thank you.
Thank you for joining us. You're welcome to stay for the Be Rich Beauty Report coming up next. But I also know you're working on book number 35, 36, 37, 38. And my third book, I know that one's got to come out soon.
Yes. I just sent the contract for the illustrator. Can't wait to update you on it and for that book to come out into the world. This is news.
Okay. Well, I'm so excited. We'll have to have you back on to talk more about that.
Absolutely.
Be Rich Beauty is in the house. For those of you who don't know, he has been blogging about how you can up your beauty game for the past year and a half on glowstreamtv.com. It's called Makeup Mondays, because when you look good, Brandon, you feel good, you do good. Sometimes people start from the inside out. You can also start from the outside in.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What's the beauty report?
So a couple of things. We're back outside. Folks are now, depending on where you live, wearing a mask, not wearing a mask. And, when we were all masked up, all you could really see is from here up. But now that we can now see people's mouths again, lips are starting to trend. Lips are coming back. And the great thing is lips are coming back and they're being reincarnated with the 90s inspired lip, right? So when I say 90s inspired, please don't go run out and buying the darkest of black lip liner and giving us a poetic justice moment, but we're making it more modern, right? So what we're seeing in terms of lip trends is we're seeing darker lip liners with clear gloss. That's another thing that's coming back, that clear gloss moment. Love a little stained glass lip, right? So we're seeing dark lip liner, dark chocolate, clear lip conditioner for those that want to go a little bit more all natural. And for those that want to have a little bit of a pop of color, again, that deeper lip liner, that bright lipstick, that magenta, that fuchsia, that red. And we're actually still pinning gloss on top of that as well. And I call that like a dreamsicle lip. So you're getting the definition and the depth with the darker lip pencil, and you're going lighter. So you're still getting that beautiful contrast. And it's all based in the 90s.
I immediately think Mary J. Blige.
Yes.
Right. Like that is what she used to do back in the day. And I tried so hard to emulate that. So I'm glad to hear that it's back.
So think Mary J. Blige and bring it out from the 90s, share my world, and bring it into 2021, especially with a beautiful chocolate complexion like yourself. You can go dark chocolate as well for your lip liner. And you can just throw on a gloss if you want to run out the house. Or you can do dark chocolate and then stick a complementary brighter color on top of it as well. It's all about the depth. So you can play around with the color here, but have fun as we see the return to lips.
I love it. Return to lips, return to the 90s, return to self-love. And when it comes to these masks, Brandon, I know you're also big on skincare. You did a skincare series on Glowstream TV. How do we keep our skin clean? Because sometimes you're out in the August heat with the sweating, we're all working hard out here to stay healthy, and it's wreaking havoc like right here in the moneymaker. which is under the eyes, above the nose.
The challenge with that is you got to make sure that you're giving yourself proper cleaning and that you're still also properly balancing down here as well. Because what's happening is everything's getting trapped with that mask on, the humidity, the moisture, all that great stuff. So spending a little extra love, cleansing the face at night, maybe incorporating a little bit of exfoliation throughout the week as well, to just exfoliate down here to help remove some of that dead skin and the things that get trapped into dead skin, and then making sure you add that hydration back immediately after you exfoliate.
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
because I just traveled. I dropped both my daughters off at school and at a new apartment. And it's the first time that I've been kind of out. And so I was wearing masks over and over again for the past week. And I see complete difference in my skin and how, like just crazy it feels and looks because of those masks. So this is brilliant, because I was just like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? This is a mess. So this is perfect.
I wouldn't be your beauty best friend if I was not helping you guys be your best and tap into that inner glow as well. So for more beauty tips, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at @BeRich_beauty.
I love it. And let me just tell you something, Mr. Be Rich Beauty and Denene, you have to check out his makeup brush cleansing tutorial, because basically he was saying those breakouts we get in our T-zone and our forehead, it's because we're not cleaning our makeup brushes more often. You think, you're trying different things, you start taking vitamins, and all a sister needed to do was clean her blush brush. So
listen.
And he shows you how. And I'm like, yes.
It makes all the sense in the world. I am so following you the second we get off this podcast.
And I'll follow you back, Denene. It was a pleasure meeting you today.
It's great meeting you too. Thank you for all the great tips.
You're welcome. Bye, guys.
I love it. On that note, this is what Glow with Marquette Shepherd is all about. The podcast is about living your life, glowing up to the best of your abilities. Start where you're at today. Swim in your own pond. Bloom where you are planted. And of course, if you want to find out more information again about Be Rich Beauty or Denene Millner, visit our website. We're going to have links up to everyone. And also just type, if you want to show support, of course, buy Denene's books, right? Of course, follow Be Rich Beauty. You can show support by liking, following, and subscribing, buying the books. Whatever you have to give, we are here to share it with you. Let's build a community together. And on that note, we'll see you next week for another edition of Glow with Marquette Shepherd. Take care, guys. Are y'all still there?
You're so amazing. Thank you so much. That was wonderful.
Was that fun? I really went to the beauty report because I'm like, I don't know how this is going to be. So thank you for rolling with it.
It was perfect. Absolutely. Now I'm going to go and find my chocolate. You think I'm playing. I used to love when Mary J. Blige did her lips that way. I'm like, wait, that's back. I can do this.
Iconic, like an old lady. Iconic. He actually works for MAC Cosmetics. He trains all the makeup artists there.
Oh, wow.
And he does celebrity makeup. And he's like, I want to be an influencer. I want to be on TV. I said, well, come, let's work together and figure this out. So he's really good. He's done my makeup before.
I love it. I love it. Well, I appreciate it. And I appreciate you for having me on today. I had such a good time. And sorry if I got all hyped about talking about, the foolishness in the newsroom, but it's been something that I've been thinking a lot about lately because of a conversation, another podcast with Ezra Klein did a podcast with Ta-Nehisi Coates and the sister who just skipped over UNC.
Nicole Hannah Jones,
and they were talking about journalism from a Black perspective, and they really sort of shook some stuff loose in me that I recognized happened to me in the newsrooms, and that I just kind of shook off. But it's just like, wow, that was really foul.
It's pervasive, and I'm glad you brought it up because I try not to be angry about what happened to me, and I think I'm less angry when I understand there is a system at play here that's so much bigger and dysfunctional.
Absolutely.
Little old Marquette.
Absolutely. But we, in typical Black girl fashion, we rise, right? We rise and we figure out something new. And what the figuring out of something new is so much better than dealing with the foolishness of,
It
being in
is.
a newsroom. So, yeah.
And I hope that comes across to people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, that wraps up our episode this time. What did you think? Who would you like to hear on the show next? Drop me a line on Facebook or Instagram at Marquette Shepherd. Also, show some love for this podcast at Glowstream TV on social media and subscribe on iTunes. Leave a review so others can find Glow with Marquette Shepherd. You can find more inspirational content online at glowstreamtv.com. Your page views, follows, and likes are like virtual applause, and the only way that we can show the world together that positive vibes and positive messages are what people want is by supporting Glowstream TV online on social media and by visiting glowstreamtv.com. And if the spirit moves you, shop in our online store. Visit glowstreamtv.com/shop. This is a 100% woman-owned, woman-led venture, and that means that the information you get is directly from me, unfiltered. I am unbossed and unbought. And the sponsors who appear on my digital channels are sponsors who I handpicked because I believe in their message and I believe in their products and services. So until next time, don't just go through life, glow through life. I'm Marquette Shepherd. Thank you for listening.